It's pretty remarkable when you realize what Jesus, risen from the dead, victorious. How does he speak to people, and to whom does he speak? You see perfectly clearly both nights that we have recounted in the first night and then the week later. What does Jesus do? He doesn't say, "Here I am raised, and you didn't believe, and now I am going to take my revenge on all of you one by one, for leaving me alone on the cross and running away and denying me." No. We would do that. But Jesus doesn't do that, because Jesus is God and perfectly human and doesn't need to do that, and sees that that's not what the message is. The message is, peace be with you. That's all he wishes us. Peace be with you. I give you a peace which the world cannot take away, he says elsewhere. And I share my joy with you, that your joy may be full. I come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And all that's symbolized by shalom, which is the fullness of all these blessings, which is, as we translate it, peace. And to whom does he speak? Does he appear before Pontius Pilate and say, "Aha! I'm risen! Too bad on you"? Does he appear before the high priests or any of the great authorities and say, "You were all wrong, see, here I am"? We would do that, but Jesus doesn't do that, because that's not the message, and that's not how it works. God doesn't work that way. God is not a loudmouth. It's said about that in the Suffering Servant songs, remember? He will not raise his voice in the streets to make his voice heard. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoldering wick he will not quench. Incredible gentleness and tenderness and care, delicacy. I mean, look around. Do you see God, making a loud noise? People are atheists. They say, "Okay, show us God. Where's God?" Well, you have to go deep enough to find God. Because God works very quietly at the center of everything and everyone. That's how the cosmos stays in existence. But there's no trumpet sounding and no loud noises. That's where God is. I remember when I was a young Jesuit at Fordham, an undergraduate, and my metaphysics teacher, who taught about the great mysteries of life, a very well-known man, Norris Clark. He said he was in an argument, a discussion once with an atheist, and he asked, "Well, what would it take for you to believe in God?" And this guy replied, "Have a big face come down from heaven and say, 'I'm God.'" Really? That would convince you? If anything was ever the devil, that's what it would be. Come on. That is why Jesus says, "Blessed are those who haven't seen and yet have believed." So they're not just looking for some external proof that you can see with your eyes, not just looking for visions and miracles and writings on the wall, and the face of Jesus in a bagel or something idiotic like that. You're looking for how God actually works with people and in the world. Deep down, bringing peace and light and hope and joy. Blessed are they who have not seen. And one of the best things you can ever pray to God for is, "Please don't ever send me a vision of the Virgin Mary or of Jesus or of anybody, please." Because then you won't have real faith. It'll be all external. Whereas the work of God happens internally. That's where it works. That's where God works. Jesus himself said so. And by the way, did you notice how he appears to the disciples after his resurrection? Very peacefully, of course, but they don't even recognize him. He walks along the way with them to Emmaus. He appears on the beach and makes them breakfast. He appears at night and has supper with them. Ordinary life. Such as described, the first reading today in the Acts of the Apostles, the early community, for example. It's an everyday life. You don't have to climb a mountain and go to a monastery where you're going to see some vision. All you need is to live your daily life. But with authenticity, which means simplicity and openness to what's right there. Jesus, as I say, Jesus says so in the Gospels. He says, this wicked and adulterous generation demands a sign. Well, no sign is going to be given to it except the sign of Jonah. That's all it says in the book of Mark, the Gospel of Mark. Luke's Gospel says, no sign will be given except the sign of Jonah. For just as Jonah was a sign to the Ninevites by preaching, so will the Son of Man be to this generation. So the word that Jesus preaches, the Beatitudes, the teaching about pardon and forgiveness and love and compassion and mercy, that's the sign of Jonah. Whenever that is preached and practiced and lived in the simplicity of daily life, that's the sign. The only sign this adulterous generation will be given, the sign that God is really at work. And that's all you need. That's all that's really valid and deep. The Gospel of Matthew has a little different slant on it. It says, no sign will be given except the sign of Jonah, which is, just as this Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And I developed that image of the heart of the earth in my Easter homily, but I want to have a different take on it tonight. It's that the Paschal mystery, dying and rising with Christ, which is exactly what happens in baptism. I did a baptism this morning. You die and rise with Christ. As Paul says to the Romans in the Easter liturgy every year. You die and buried with him in baptism, and you rise to newness of life. In your daily life, you die and you rise, the Paschal mystery. So every day, if you really want a sign that God is with you and that God exists, die and rise every day. Die to your fears and your pettiness and your narrow minds and your blocked hearts and your pettiness and your grudges and your tininess of spirit. Die to all your ego, the centrality of your ego. Die to that and rise in Christ. Forgive your wife or your neighbor or your boss or your coworker. Show mercy to the person on the street. Invite, as Jesus says, the stranger into the country. Let the immigrant come in. Show mercy to the prisoner. Reform the prison system. Change the way we look at the homeless, the hungry and the thirsty. Whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. In your daily life, how you treat each other on the street and in your families, in the simplicity of your daily life, if you die and you rise, that's the sign that Jesus is risen and with you. Not some vision that some nun had 200 years ago. The vision you have of Christ when you die and rise today, in the smallest of ways in your daily life. That's the sign. And blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed, because they share in the Paschal mystery, moment by moment by moment, every day of their lives. How blessed are they? So let's be persuaded about what Jesus says today. You are very blessed if you have not seen. Those who have seen are really fallen into a trap if they're not careful. So don't ask to see. Ask to see by dying and rising. Ask to see Christ in your neighbor. Minister to him there. That's where God is present, in the simplicity of your daily life. Right there, the Son of Man and Son of God who doesn't lift his voice in the street, will be saying to your heart, moment by moment, peace be with you. And then, wonder of wonders, we'll be able to say to the world, peace be with you. And really mean it.